Real people, real conversations, real solutions. A podcast created by the Cleveland Branch NAACP, powered by the Freedom Dreams Coalition, to have real conversations and to raise issues about the things that are impacting us most in the community and what we can do to solve them. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. So we are ecstatic to have our very first podcast, the Cleveland Pulse. And for me, this has just been in the making for so long, something we want to create over a year now, but now we're finally here. And this is our very first episode, and we get to have Dr. Chavone Nash of the Cleveland Dreams Coalition here with us. And what a better way to start. So I want to start by you just kind of talking about who you are and what you do, and what is the Freedom Dreams Coalition?
Yeah. Edwin, thanks for having me. This is very exciting, and mostly exciting too because this is the first episode, so I'm excited to be a part of this project with NAACP. So I, as you know, am Dr. Chavone Nash. I'm with Third Space Action Lab, and Third Space Action Lab is an equity design studio. We focus on projects centered in Black and Brown communities. And there, I'm the project director for the Cleveland Freedom Dreams Coalition. So I get to work with you a lot. So the coalition is a part of a larger project, which is the Partnership for Equitable and Resilient Communities. That is a national project. We, Cleveland, are in cohort 1 with 3 other cities. Selma, Alabama, Durham, North Carolina, and Twin Cities, St. Paul. And so we are tasked with designing what Black and Brown community revitalization and rejuvenation looks like when you center community voice, community response, and aspect in that design. So we are in year 3 of that project. We just launched year 3 a couple of weeks ago. Well, no, last week, October 1st. And so very excited.
So like, the NAACP and so many other organizations are a part of this cohort. Why is it important that so many of us are a part of this thing? And what's the goal? Like, what is the it that the Cleveland Dreams Coalition is trying to accomplish?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll say, there are about 10 organizations represented on the Cleveland Freedom Dreams Coalition, and it's literally a marriage and partnership of friends who do the work and are doing the work and come together to do the work in a bigger way. And so while a lot of the work is strategizing on projects and solutions that should be designed, that are designed with the centering Black and Brown communities, a lot of it too is how do we use resources that we have, how do we reallocate resources, and how do we fundraise to be able to do these projects in the space. And so the overall goal is to look at what systematic issues exist, what things we need to disrupt to build a different mechanism and tool that is not only respondent of the needs of Black and Brown communities, but centers those needs. We know when minority groups have what they need to succeed, everybody sees an increase in success and achievable goals. And so it's not just a direct target to say we only serve Black and Brown communities, but those are the people that are left behind. We are the people that have been historically underserved, and this group is tasked and does diligent work at framing up projects that support the progress of our people.
So, we've been a part of this thing since the inception.
Yeah.
And I'm just beyond elated to be a part of the project. So far, I feel like we're very engaged. I feel very connected to the group. I feel that we are really focused on creating solutions for the problems that our community faces. But I also feel like I have a group of people with me who care about me and care about the work. It's not fluff. We don't do it for show. We do it because we really want to create real solutions. So to that end, I am incredibly fond of Third Space. Shout out to Evelyn Barnett and Mordecai Cargill, 2 amazing people. I'm rocking their hat that says it's in the book. But I think Third Space Action Lab is just an incredible place, and I think it is the right organization to be in the center of leading this type of work. I think we are fortunate to be, work side and side along Third Space and so many other amazing organizations to serve this town because, we are in some interesting times right now. And no one entity or organization can do it alone. And so to that end, let's talk about like some of the problems that are Cleveland are facing right now. You see what's happening in DC right now. We're in a government shutdown. I never imagined I'd be on a podcast talking about the government is currently shut down right now in real time. Tell me some of the major issues that you see from the perspective of the Cleveland Dreams Coalition right here in Cleveland.
Yeah, so I mean, that's heavy, especially the part that you said about working in partnership and not in silo. That is a huge benefit that we have. And the benefit is that the people who are at the table have a mutual understanding of where we need to go. And so we spent a lot of time building trust, not just amongst each other, but amongst the structure of the coalition too, like being able to trust the process. And so the coalition operates in 4 work groups. And so those work groups are civic infrastructure, democracy building, and equitable civic engagement, housing, and then we have a community economic development group. And so when we look at the systemic issues in our communities or that face our communities, we look at them through those lenses. They're all tied together. Now, the operation of the 4 separate work groups happens just so we can divide up the work, kind of like a divide and conquer spirit. But the projects that we do are related to each other. They are symbiotic in how and very relational in how the projects operate and how they are married to each other. And so when you look at something like a government shutdown, what you mentioned, so we look at it if you look at it from a top-down perspective, when you look down, unfortunately, how are the everyday people impacted by this government shutdown? Me personally, I have people in my family who receive Social Security benefits, veterans benefits, have Medicaid, Medicare, all those things. And you look at what could happen depending on how long this shutdown occurs, where we exist as the coalition, not necessarily as a gap filler for those things, but as a connector. So where can we partner with organizations that are already doing the work in Cleveland and know those landscapes? We serve as a connector and a conduit to get access to help people access those points. And so just like this podcast, we also do other things to get people to to inform people about what's happening in the community, like the Freedom Lectures. That's another tool that we use to engage with people and inform folks and bring experts in to have conversations. And so we're all about, in addition to the projects and the programs, really taking real people with everyday issues and everyday experiences and crafting the projects around what can we do to help make their experience easier.
The work is amazing that we do. I think one of the things I'm often challenged with is, having the conversations that we have in our rooms and simplifying them to have conversations with anybody and everybody. So when I come across the person in the street and they ask me what's going on? What are you doing? I can give you a big answer, but not necessarily able to put that big answer in terms that everybody can relate to and understand. We know that everybody is going through their own personal struggles and stripes, and we know that the government shutdown impacts us all. To what degree? It just depends on where you are. But for our understanding is that people have to have a place that they can feel trusted and engaged, where they can receive the information in a way that they can process it and then move forward. Mm-hmm. So to that end, again, people always ask me, what do you all do? I mean, I always say we're the oldest civil rights organization in the country. What does that even mean? Are you an activist? Yeah, I consider myself an activist. I consider everybody who's in the Freedom Dreams Coalition to be an activist, but activist is such a big term, right? I mean, It's so different from the years of the 50s and the 60s. When you thought about an activist, you thought about Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and so many others. Dr. Nash, what does an activist look like in 2025?
Yeah, that is a heavy question. We have such big shoes to fill when it comes to the term activist. Like I mentioned earlier, we're in a cohort with Selma, Alabama, and we know the history that exists in Selma, in correspondence with the civil rights movement, and just the time when we were fighting for a lot of rights. Unfortunately, we're really close to back to being at that same time. But when we look at the word activist and advocate, I think they are similar in definition. Just like you, I consider everybody on the coalition an activist, because if you're not an activist and being active in the work that you're doing, you're not exercising the fact that you can make a difference, right? And so all the people, we call it our collaborative table when we come and we meet together as a coalition. So all the groups, all the organizations and the individuals that represent those organizations are mission driven, right? And if you're going to get active, if you're going to be in the trenches doing the thing with the people, you're an activist. You pointing out an issue and you are helping to come up with a solution. You're an activist. None of us have all the solutions to the problems. None of us have a lot of the solutions to the problems. But what we do have are people who are hard workers, people who are connectors, and people who are movers and shakers. And you got those three things, you active. You're active in community. And you can come to any of our intergenerational lunches and ask the elders what activist means to them. And I'm sure they're going to point out, like I would point out our co-founders, Evelyn and Mordecai, as activists, because the creation of third space and the thought to create third space in itself is a radical movement of activism. We see a thing that needs to be done and we're going to do the thing. And that's literally what activism is. Inserting yourself in the solution, whether you are coming to learn or you coming to present some best practices, whatever that is, like being active, I think, is the basis of being an activist. And everybody has the power to do that. And I want to stress that, like, everybody has the power to be an activist. We all have our own skills, our own gifts, and we need to tap into those to find out what our piece of the resistance is and being active in that.
So I want to even expound on that. I mean, I love that answer. And I want to expound on that a little bit because I'm a father. I have 2 kids, and I'm always talking to my kids about the organization that I work for, the NAACP, and what it does. And, they're always asking me, well, what can I do? For my 10-year-old and my 6-year-old, and for the young person out there that says, I want to be an activist now. What can a child do to demonstrate activism?
Yeah. That's a solid question. I have a 6-year-old too. I didn't know you had a 6-year-old, Edwin. I have a 6-year-old too. And he was out of school recently. And so it was in the middle of the week, so he had to come to work with me. And he was like, are we going to third space? I was like, yes. I said, why? I feel good when I go there. I was like, I'm glad. I'm glad you feel good. I'm glad you feel a way when you come down to the third space is what I call it. But I think for kids like that young, like kids, being in the space, like being in a space where the activity is happening, where the things are the conversations are happening. I remember when I was younger, I had this neighbor. She was so funny, but she used to always tell me, you need to stay out of grown folks' business. I always was asking questions. Like my favorite question was why? And I know I got on their nerves. I know I did. It was excessive, likely. But my son does it now. And I just look at him like, wow, you are definitely my kid. But allowing them to ideate in that space, right? Allowing them to be in the conversation when appropriate and just to learn. Like a simple thing that we do in my house is my son likes to sponge his hair, like curl his hair every morning. And so while we're doing it, we go over different random facts, Black facts that are historical facts or things that are happening in community. And I ask him about the one we talked about the previous day, and we'll learn a new one today. Like, it's very simple. It takes a minute to do his hair or so. And we just talk like in that way. And then there are other things we can do. Like, I don't mean to keep plugging third space, but I'm going to keep plugging third space. The reading room has a Black Kids Corner. And so all the authors are either about Black storytellers or Black stories and things like that. Bring the kids into the conversation. And a lot of stuff that we think is too heavy for them, it's not. It just needs to be bite-sized so that they can digest it. But they are ready to be in the mix. They're ready to do the thing. And I think that we have to nurture that why. That's something that I am learning as a mom, is to nurture that why. Because sometimes I want to say, okay, all right, that's the whys for today are done. But I try to nurture it.
Who would have ever thought about just like a simple thing like reading and the preservation of our history could be considered activism, especially in a time when we are in a place where people are trying to remove Black history from books and just making it not known anymore. And that we have children who are learning and fighting to continue to learn and just challenging, right? Just wanting to be more. Like to me, I break down activism as like this, I want to be involved at more than just a surface level. And that I have the wherewithal to understand that it's not just about me and that this contributes to everybody and that there's something that I need to do, that I can't just sit here and not do anything. I see it starting with children. All right, so we talked about kids, but let's talk about the next generation. This older generation, I kind of feel like is that forgotten generation. Not quite millennials, but like that generation that's just, they're here. Yeah. They have all the technology. They're not necessarily engaged. They're not high on voting or understanding, what's happening around them. They don't know about policies or local government, but they're just there.
Yeah. Very interesting, but I'll start with, that's why I appreciate the programs and projects that the NAACP hosts to try to get people engaged. And I honor projects like that and programs. I think we need to do more of them. Oftentimes we do them, we need to be in the classroom with them. We need to be in the space. I went to a town hall last night with state representative, and most of the conversation was about redistricting. And someone in the audience brought up a tool that many states are using where individuals, like regular constituents, can go on and draw a map and see what would my map look like if I drew a map for the redistricting conversation. Someone brought up like, hey, this could be a really good project for high school students to engage them very early in the process of what it looks like, why we redistrict, when we redistrict, why, what the rules are, and how those things need to happen. I think that is a great idea. And I think oftentimes as practitioners, we can want the people to come to us sometimes, and we should be going where they are. And so some of those conversations need to happen in classroom. Some of those conversations need to happen at the rec center. Some of those conversations need to happen at, papers need to be dropped off at the AAU team practice or something like that, And so we have community centers in our community. We have faith-based institutions. We have all these places where we gather. And so we just need to really tap into that and utilize those as places of learning and not just what they, historically are there for, engaging. And so there are new and innovative techniques and approaches that we can have to engaging this next gen. And my youngest sister is in this generation. So I feel it when you say, I feel it. I love my sister. But oftentimes, I think she's getting a lot better at it now. But before it would be like, do you know what's happening in the world? Like, you're here and the world is happening around you, and it's going to happen to you if you don't engage with it. That's the same thing I would say to people who say they don't vote or are not engaged. I try to be mindful that everybody has a different experience. And oftentimes people that I'm engaging with, some of their first acknowledgement of voting is like the judicial system and something adverse that may have happened. But I'm like, hey, if you don't get engaged, it's going to engage you and it's just going to happen. And then there's nothing you can do at that point, at that time, And so I talked to her friends. I talked to her like, hey, make sure you come home and vote or vote absentee ballot, one of them. She's been pretty good about it. But I think we don't need to be those people that back in my day, like we gotta cut that, like, cause nobody cares. Like, I don't even care what I did back in my day, but we need to take that and try to, redesign it, like get creative with getting people engaged. I just saw something, and I'm gonna stop talking after this, but I just saw something about, the majority party that is holding office right now, and this this group called Blexit. I hate to give them any platform, but it's literally they're doing this tour and going to different HBCU homecomings this fall to try to get young Black voters to become MAGA supporters. So
you said a couple of things. I mean, it all flowed. Activism could be something as simple as we're encouraging others to get civically engaged, civically involved, understanding, what's at stake if we're not.
Yeah. Simply
just raising a person's understanding and pushing them to get involved and to get in place, right? Mm-hmm. That's a point of activism. What you also talked about, the disengagement that we constantly see when we look around. We also see that there are other powers that be that are seeing this and wanting to capitalize on the opportunity to push young Black voters in a direction that they shouldn't go in. I want to talk more about, from the top-down perspective, I mean, the overall problem when it comes to like civic engagement is I just think that it has been lost from our generation. Like the generations down, people don't see the value in voting.
Yeah.
I have my own reasons why, but I mean, we can start with your perspective. Why are young Black people not voting? Why are they not civically engaged? And maybe identify with some steps that you think that we can do to change things.
Yeah. One thing I'll say is I think often like in American civics culture, we get, everything is a partisan issue. This is not a partisan issue. This is a everybody issue. Everybody, no matter where you stand politically, should be engaged in an educational way of understanding what's happening and voting. And so I think that this is a whole us conversation, right? This is a whole us problem. And so I was watching a video the other day, and it was an elder. She happened to be at Congressional Black Caucus, and she was talking about how she charged her generation with the reason why we don't understand, or generations after her don't fully understand the struggle and how to not return to that way. Say, she mentioned some things about being, getting through that and then being codified to say, we're going to keep going forward, but not teaching what actually happened. So we know how not to end up back in that, to that thing. And not to say that we did it to ourselves or that, the underserved group did it to ourselves. That's not the case, but just a point of reference so we know what those triggers and tickles are to look at. I think that one thing, like I mentioned before, like we got to stop backing my day in it. Like we got to stop doing that. And we have to invite that generation to the conversation as real decision makers, not as people who are just there like, okay, we want to make sure we have a youth, put them on the board or put them on the thing. Like, no, they got to have a say so. Like they have solutions. They're at the table with the problems. They know what needs to be done. And we have to be responsible enough to know that they have solutions and invite them to those conversations. We shouldn't be orbiting around them to say, hey, this is what y'all gonna do to do better. Like, they have solutions. They have great ideas, and we need to be responsible and activating those ideas and empowering them to empower the rest of them to do it. Because they're going to listen to their peers before they listen to us. They will. They will listen to their friend before they listen, oftentimes to someone else saying the same thing. And the more you hear it, the more engaged you get with it anyway. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I see is that decisions are being made for people and they're not being included in it. And I'll say that that's that's a premise of the Cleveland Freedom Dreams Coalition. It's centering people in the decision making, right? Centering the folks who we are talking about in the decision making and the development of the solution. So yeah.
I mean, you said a lot, but absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And those conversations have to be had. I mean, it started in one-on-one conversations, and we really have to address it. I go back sometime. I remember I went to a barbershop, and I'm having a conversation with a guy. And this is about voting, maybe about a year ago, and I was asking him, "Hey, are you planning to vote?" And he was like, "Nah." And I'm like, "Why?" And he was, the system isn't designed for us. And I said, okay, the country wasn't designed for us, but it was built by us. And then if you just accept, the fact that, if you're saying it's not designed for us, then you feel like you have no parts in it, then things that you don't like will continue to happen. And then he goes on to say, well, all politicians are corrupt. And I once had a barbershop and they took it away from me, and those same politicians are in power today. And so I'm saying the only way you can get corrupt politicians out of office is to vote them out or to raise such awareness that they're kicked out of office. But you're not raising awareness and you're not interested in voting. So that means the powers that be that you were saying are crooked remain in power. And you remain in the same situation. How does that make sense? And he was like, it doesn't make sense. I'm like, all right. Well, what about things? So I'm going to go back. I'm going to date this a little bit. When recreational marijuana was on the ballot, and I asked the person, I was like, hey, by chance, do you smoke marijuana? He was like, absolutely. I said, so are you voting for the marijuana to be recreationally used here? And he was like, no, I think enough people will vote for it that I'll probably get it. And I said, but what if it doesn't pass? I'm going to do it anyway. I said, well, the biggest thing is about the decriminalization of it. Like, you got to care about something.
Yeah.
That's the point I'm getting to. You have to care about something enough to move beyond yourself. You have children. What about your children? Mm-hmm. What about their generation?
I think that part about care is like underscore, right? And care has to move to action, right? And so the example you gave, like the barber cared, but he wasn't willing to do anything about it. Like, I care, but I'm not willing to do anything about it. And I think oftentimes, like, that's the part that we missing, right? We care, but we don't set the agenda. We put all our hope in the person who we're voting for, who's being elected to do this thing. But we as a community haven't given this person an agenda. And so when they get in office and then they either are very successful or they're not successful, we blame either way. Like, I want them out of here because they didn't do X, Y, and Z. But did we give them an agenda? Did we hold them accountable? That's why I appreciate projects like the People's Solutions Lab, what we just did. That was a super dope project. And so,
you want to take a little bit of time to talk about the People's Solution Lab?
Yeah. So I don't want to take anybody's thunder because I was just a participant in it and, very late to the organizing table. But the Cleveland Freedom Dreams Coalition was able to support another group of folks in Cleveland, the Cleveland Power Alliance. I will let them talk about the Cleveland Power Alliance. But the People's Solutions Lab was a lab. And it was about 60 or 70 residents came together on a Saturday. We spent 3.5 hours together. And so they were tasked with coming up with policy that they wanted to present to Cleveland City Council or to folks who are running for council as an agenda that they want to see passed in the next legislature for city council. And so they came up with 2 great policy items during this 3-hour session. And so the next phase of the project, they already have presented these pieces, but they've been doing meetings with council folks and folks who are running for office, for city council. And then there will be another session where there is an accountability session. Like, how long is it going to take to get these things activated? What is the process that we need to do? And this is an agenda. And this is what we should be doing to present our issues to legislatures instead of expecting the legislator to know every single issue that exists in our community. We have to be voices for ourselves. And so people who are, I don't want to call them voices because everybody got a voice, but people who don't know how to be active or are hesitant to be active, that's where folks like you and I come in and the coalition come in like, okay, hey, we got you. We're going to help amplify your voice. We're going to get your voice carried to where it needs to be and your problem carried. And so, like People's Solutions Lab, hands down, stuff like that, innovative projects like that need to exist in order to empower people. So I'm excited for the next one. I'm excited for the next lab that we do and the next set of policies that we come up with and the next set of accountability measures that we have for folks who get elected. So we're not just letting them become we're not just, we have a tool to hold them accountable, right? Yeah.
The key words, accountability. Accountability. You take ownership in the situation that you live in. You take ownership in the community that you live in. You are actively engaged. And to me, that's activism. That is activism at its truest form. And that's what we have to strive to become. These kind of conversations, this is why we started this, because I want to have real conversations with real people. Yeah. And I want to constantly look to find solutions on what we can do to make Cleveland the place that we desire it to be and not the place it once was.
Yeah.
We don't need to get great again because we always been great, but we can always improve on where we are right now. And so I'm ecstatic to continue to have these conversations to move the needle forward.
Yeah. I think that is like the basis of the Cleveland Freedom Dream, like Freedom Dreams. That's why Freedom Dreams is so big in the logo, because we need you to dream. Like, just let the bounds go, let the boundaries go, close your eyes. Everything is done. We have reached where we're going to reach. We've achieved the thing. What do you feel like? What does it smell like? What does it look like? Who's there with you? Like, that's the type of dreaming that we want. We want to get others active in doing that. And when you dream, like, some of it is radical. Like, some of it is like, man, this is sci-fi crazy. Like, this is really a thing. But you can drill it down to actual conceptual projects and programs. I think there are no bounds when it comes to being imaginative and innovative in project development. And I push the coalition folks, like, let's think about what we could do if we do this different, or if we incorporate this program or this group. But dreaming and freely dreaming that's the solution. That's a huge part of the solution.
So you got to take the thunder on one of my last questions I was going to ask you, but I'm going to ask you anyway. No, I love it. To our listeners out there who've been kind of sitting around and listening and trying to figure out, what should I do to get engaged? Where do I start? This gave them a spark today. Dr. Nash, what do you suggest they do next? What's the next steps for those people who are sitting home and like, I'm getting to the point I'm ready?
I got a couple good ones for you. Okay. First thing you should do is go to clefreedomdreams.org. Scroll down and you'll see a list of all of the coalition members. Click on their logos, go to their pages, and subscribe to their newsletters. They all send regular newsletters so you can see what's happening in the community. This is 10 different organizations, and so it is a lot going on. A lot of ways to engage are going to come to you. You're going to be kept in the know. And when you get those newsletters, RSVP, because most of the stuff is free. That's how much we want you to come and engage. Like, most of it is cost free. Come, engage, and just sit there. And you come to one, you're going to come to another one. You're going to find a buddy. Bring a friend to the second one. Bring a friend to the next one. So that's definitely the very first thing I would say. Go there, click on everybody's link, and join the newsletters. And then when you subscribe and join, you're going to be put into you're just going to be thrust into a new world, a world and a way of activating and becoming active in your community. Because we can't sit here and be idle and complain. We have to put feet to the ground to make that change. So I think if you start there, like, it's only up. Like, it's up from there. So start at that point, do that, and then get out there, move your feet, and go to the things. And it's easy from there, because you're going to get all of the action plans at that point.
Dr. Nash, I can't thank you enough for coming and spending some time and talking with us today. On the next episode, I'm going to be rolling out some of those additional community initiatives and dates that things are going to be happening in. But if those of you out there are listening, thank you for tuning in for our first time out. And before the next time I see you, do the best you can to take care of yourself, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Peace. Thank you.